back to Let's Travel, where your co-host Dimitri and I interview the most interesting young hustlers in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So who we got today, E?
Not gonna lie, man, I'm pretty hyped for our guest here today. He's a professional longboarder, founder of his own longboarding company, Neuvision Skate Co, a filmmaker, and an adventurer.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's definitely rad. Say less. Let's get to it, man. Let's go.
All right, bet. Let's get to it then. All right, so Josh, let's start off with your interest in longboarding, right? So for some of our listeners who may not know what longboarding is, imagine a skateboard, right? But longer and wider. It's also important to note that in longboarding, the tricks that you do are a lot different than skateboarding just by the nature of the board itself. And I've had some experience, longboarding as well, but definitely not as much as Josh. And before we get into all of that, Josh, could you give our listeners and viewers some insight as to how you got interested in longboarding?
Totally. So I think it was around, I was like 11 years old and probably like 5th, 6th grade going into middle school. And my parents had just recently sold my Xbox because I played it too much. So I was a bit bored, as typical 5th, 6th graders try to do. You just look for something to do. And happened to see some kids just cruising around on longboards in my neighborhood in South Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's kind of just like, oh, that looks kind of fun. Decided to save up some money and then got some birthday money that year for my 12th birthday and ended up getting a board and kind of like falling in love with it from there. And then just started creating videos with it, just like an old crappy GoPro camera. I think it was like a GoPro Hero 2 whenever they like first came out pretty much. And yeah, that's kind of like the brief introduction to longboarding for me.
Yeah, man. Definitely feel that. It's, for the times that I did it, it was definitely just a lot of fun, and especially just learning a whole bunch of tricks with your friends, going out just when you have time. It's pretty cool just being able to do all of that. And, what were some important experiences that kind of led you to this interest? I know you talked about, seeing some people longboarding and thinking that's cool, but obviously you must be a thrill seeker in some sort of way, right?
Yeah, I've always been kind of like into just outdoorsy stuff, anything adventurous. I mountain biked with my dad a lot growing up, starting from age probably 7 or 8. So that kind of fueled my love for outdoors and adventure related activities, and then longboarding was just like another outlet for that overarching interest. So yeah, I've always been into just anything like that. So longboarding, it fit the criteria.
Word. I definitely feel that. And if anyone goes on your Instagram page or your YouTube channel, they can definitely see that you are posting some pretty dope content. So yeah, man. So obviously to post this type of content, and the quality that you do, you need to be somewhat skilled in photography and videography, right? So when did you learn to merge photography and videography with your love for longboarding as well?
So I think my love for filmmaking and longboarding kind of grew parallel to each other, because even after the first month of me longboarding, I created my first YouTube video, and it was a tutorial on how to do the 5 most basic things a beginner would do on a longboard. Like I said, just using a GoPro Hero 2 and my dad's old video camera. Terrible quality, but at the time it was fine for a 12-year-old. That's kind of where those interests became aligned, and then over the years I kind of continued longboarding and filming together. But then it wasn't really until late 2018, beginning of 2019 that I actually took a step up with filmmaking and media production in general, when I actually was pursuing my own media production company, Neuvision Media. So I did more client work on the side to kind of help fund all the adventures. But yeah, so the short answer is I've had a lot of these, the two passions have aligned basically since I started. But the filmmaking aspect of it got a lot more serious starting in 2019.
So what does your personal creative process look like? I mean, obviously like you post all this stuff, content of you going like 60 miles per hour plus on a longboard or skydiving and all that stuff, right? But obviously with all of that, there's a process to it, right? So I'm pretty interested to hear more about your personal process.
Yeah. So the creative process definitely varies, just depending on, number one, what activity I'm doing. Number two, the scope of any sort of project I'm working on. A lot of times it's kind of just, I'm like out doing stuff, adventuring, and like I always bring my camera with me everywhere. So sometimes it's like more opportunistic. Like if, we hike a mountain and it's really pretty, it's like take photos at the top for sunset or something. Or if it's, we're out longboarding and we're like feeling it on a certain road, or like there's a really good scenery, we'll be like, all right, let's break out the cameras and film. But then on more planned out projects, there's a lot more like pre-production that goes into it, from, planning out shots, storyboarding, everything like that. So it can kind of just vary. But a lot of stuff is kind of just shot in the moment. Just always have a camera on me to capture anything in case. So I'd say it's like half and half.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Cause like, I swear that's the worst. You're trying to like live the experience, but then you can't capture it to reflect on it again or share with your friends. So that's a good approach. Just always have the camera handy. That's awesome. So you mentioned like 2019 was a pivotal moment in like getting a little more serious into your videography and your photography work. Want to just kind of talk about that? Like, what was that process like? Kind of double click on that. Yeah.
So I guess I'll just go back to the previous 6 months that kind of inspired that. So I did this big trip to Europe for 5 weeks right after graduating high school. And after that, it kind of really got the wheels turning about what exactly I wanted to do in life. Cause originally I was just in the mindset I was going to UNC, going to go through the business school there and probably I was thinking like investment banking, just cause I didn't really know much about it. It was just like what a lot of people said. So I was kind of like onto that. And then I did this trip to Europe and I was like, I don't even know how to describe it, but like coming back from the trip, I never felt sad to leave a trip before that. And I was like, just thinking that I have to find a way to be able to do stuff like this for the rest of my life. Like not vacation just a couple times a year. Like if I could do trips and like explore the world, not full time, but like a lot more often. And then that fall, like the wheels are already turning there. Then that fall, I actually had my aunt suddenly passed away. And it kind of just really hit me as like, life is so fragile and like it can end at literally any moment. Like it just happens. And so from there, I just decided that I was going to kind of like toss out my other plans of, that IB job and then kind of just pursue what really makes me happy full time. And so then I started my media company and started doing stuff like more corporate style stuff, not as exciting as what you see all over my Instagram, but it was like stuff in the real estate industry, a couple of weddings, and then some other like corporate companies. Like I kind of helped fund the other adventures and then helped me like progress my skills with that to be able to offer stuff to clients in the future. So that's kind of where everything with pursuing the media side of things, like at a deeper level than just filming longboarding, started to arise. And then it's kind of just progressed pretty well from there.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's definitely, thanks for getting vulnerable on that. I feel like I can relate so much, dude. My dad passed it's getting close to a year yet, but not, it's like a few months shy of a year. And I'm now it's all good, man. But like I definitely can relate to what you're saying. Just like seeing, once you have someone close like that is just not there, it's really just like, wow, like this is all temporary. I mean, like religion aside, this is all temporary. So live to the max and do trips. And, it's like we were said off air, I'm in Hawaii right now. And I feel like as you're describing that trip, all the wheels are turning for me too, except me and E here are definitely heading into corporate America, not really doing much with our reflection, but that's really inspiring. So thanks. And definitely, great story for the listeners as well. But so talking about progression through longboarding, you're pretty good in high school, right? Let's kind of take it back a bit. And then you chose to go to school at UNC, like you said. What was that transition like? And like, how did you make sure to keep longboarding like an essential part of your day-to-day despite that transition?
Yeah, so I'd honestly say my peak for longboarding was probably that Europe trip in 2018. Just because, like, to a degree, like the level of longboarding that you're at can kind of be determined by the amount of risk you're taking. And so it's like less just solely on skill and more like just like a numbers game. Like, am I going to risk doing this for that? And I was an 18-year-old right out of college, just risking it. Like some stuff I wouldn't do today. So going into college, I'd continue to longboard like here and there, shoot a few videos. I had so much footage from that trip though, that it kind of like held me over content wise, while I was transitioning, because it was such a big transition for me. But, yeah, so I kind of just enjoyed it, had fun, didn't longboard as much as before, but, still kept up with it overall and still keep up with it to this day. But no, I've never done it like every day. Never anything like that. That's just, I feel like I'd be really tired. It kind of takes it out of you. But yeah, that's kind of my answer there.
Interesting. Okay. So, you know what, I'd love to talk a little bit more about like sort of your path within UNC. You know, you did decide to drop out. What was really the deciding factor for that, and you know, how'd that all kind of turn out?
Yeah. So, just with all the media, like with my media production company and everything like that, it all started to overwhelm me a ton. So I dropped out this past September. I was a junior. I had thoughts about it for a while, but it was one of those things that it hadn't started to like hold me back from doing more. It was just like extra stuff that I didn't feel like doing. So I could balance it. It was definitely pretty hard at times, but I could balance it. And that was kind of the reason why I stayed. But in the fall, it got to the point where I realized that if I didn't have the time commitment of college as well, that I could be more successful in what I'm doing. So that's where it made sense to leave school, kind of pull the plug for a little bit. And people ask like if I'd ever go back, and I'm like, I'm fine with if I need to go back, I will. Like I'm not gonna say no, that will never happen, but just kind of seeing where it goes right now. I can go back at any time and finish my degree, so I'm just kind of seeing where this all takes me.
Yeah, and that's a good perspective, I think. I don't know, I'd be lying if there wasn't a time when I didn't think, like, is this all worth it? And, like, that's something that comes to a ton of students' minds. And so, you know, that's a good lesson. You don't always have to be like, all right, it's this way or the other way. It could be both. You know, it could just be a long break. And obviously, you're a big testament to how that can really work out for someone. But yeah, awesome stuff. So yeah, let's dive more into the longboarding and the adventuring. Do you have a couple sponsorships, right? Which ones are those, and how did you sort of lock those up?
Yeah, so honestly, I've had more sponsorships in the past. Like as I've progressed, I've just realized longboarding itself, there's not like much money in, and so that's why I've like kind of made my own company out of it, and then just rode the gear that I like, and like it's not that big of a deal. But so Neuvision Skate Co is my company, technically a sponsor because I guess I own it, and then Powell Peralta is the wheel company, Era Trucks is the truck company, and then just like a few other like little sponsors, basically just like free gear, nothing crazy. But so yeah, that is kind of what we're working with right now. Sponsorships were definitely a lot bigger of a thing back when longboarding was more like in the prime, like 2014, 15, 16. But yeah, they're still cool. Yeah,
no, I mean, sponsorships don't hurt.
Yeah, it never hurts.
I'd get sponsored by anyone for doing anything if I could. Well, yeah. So let's say that like I wanted to get sponsored as an upcoming longboarder right now. Like, what would I have to do? You know, how do you actually go about that?
Yeah. So the biggest thing this is just like not just with longboarding. This is with any sport, any activity, with filmmaking or photography. If you're trying to reach out to a company to like work with them, it's just the biggest thing is like showing the company and like pitching to them what you can offer them and not really what they can give you. I mean, obviously you guys understand that, but some people, it's not as common sense as you would think. But just kind of like, where's the value prop for the company? You have to present that to them. And like, at the end of the day, it's a business deal. So whatever services / representation / promotion you provide for them, they have to be selling more products than they're sending you or making more money than they're paying you. Or else it just doesn't really make sense. So that's kind of the route to go about that. Obviously, do whatever activity it is that you're doing, continue practicing, continue upping the quality on that. And then when reaching out to companies, just pitch something to the company that will make sense for them financially, logistically, and kind of just build relationships from there. And then the more relationships you build, the easier it is to get with other companies in the future, because then you can kind of like reference other companies, and like you there is something to say of the credibility you get from working with certain brands or companies. So it's kind of just like a very exponential thing. Like, it's very hard at first, and then kind of just gets a little better and easier, and you can continue up.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, it's kind of like law of diminishing returns a bit, almost like an inverse of that. But
yeah,
as you just get through the pain in the beginning, it'll, like all those past efforts make the rest of the road a little easier. So yeah,
without a doubt,
good stuff.
Yeah, man, for sure. And speaking of the exponential process, right? I mean, like, you've been able to work, just with some pretty dope brands, just, with longboarding, kind of outside of that, with your filming and adventuring, like GoPro, LG, Lexus, Suspicious, Movement, Motor Trend, Douchebags, Arbor Collective, Karayuma. Like, bro, like, these are hella brands that obviously are blue chip brands, and it's dope that you've been able to work with them, right? And
yeah,
I mean, just curious, right? Like, how did you get in contact with these brands, and what was it like to work with them?
Yeah, so from the beginning, it's like mostly you reaching out to brands. Just, there's different ways to do it. You can sometimes do it through Instagram, sometimes do it through like LinkedIn, finding the right people to contact in the company, mostly on like the marketing side of things. And then sometimes certain brands just have like forms you can fill out on their website. So like starting out, it was always me reaching out, but then as things grew, especially with like media, like certain videos and photos going viral, brands started reaching out to me. So I'd say about half of those brands on that list reached out to me, and half of them I reached out to. It's kind of like a split. But yeah, it was definitely a huge blessing to be able to work with those brands. They're awesome brands in my opinion, and it was a lot of fun doing the projects with them.
Yeah, and I remember actually seeing a video of you on SportsCenter, actually, of you bombing down a hill. That was pretty dope, man. I mean, obviously, right? Like, I mean, that's just the result of you building your personal brand up to a point where you actually are able to have it in a way that it'll, like, the media will be posted on other platforms like ESPN, right? And so, what would you say were some of your favorite projects while working with these brands, right? Like, or like, with like brands like GoPro or Lexus, for example?
Yeah. I'd say GoPro was definitely the biggest one. That was like my first big one, and that was a huge deal for me. We were shooting for the launch video for at the time it was their Hero 8 camera, and then the GoPro Max, which is their 360 camera. So we went to Norway for a week and just grinded it out, and that was a crazy experience. Definitely a long week, very tired, partly because Norway, like in the summer, it doesn't get dark for very long, so we were up at all hours of light, just like grinding. But it was such a cool experience overall, and definitely kind of like changed my outlook on like what brands I could actually work with if I like tried, and really like marketed myself. Because the biggest thing is just putting yourself out there, because no brands are going to find you if you don't put yourself out there. So, and then I'd say my other favorite project was probably the project with Lexus, where it was for like their new IS 350, I think. And I was racing a Lexus down the mountain when I was longboarding. That was actually just here in Malibu, about an hour away from where I'm living right now. And that was a blast. Definitely something I've like never done anything like that before. So definitely new, fun, exciting.
That's dope, bro.
That's intense, man. Who won the race?
The Lexus won. It was for a Lexus commercial. They can't let me win.
Who really won though when the cameras are off? I guess that's the question. But
I can't tell them. Signed an NDA. No, I'm just kidding.
Nah, it's good. Yeah, well, so like you said before, sponsorships are great, but at the end of the day, you decided to sort of go through entrepreneurship and start your own company, Neuvision Skate. Can you talk about that? Like, what's that experience been like? What kind of led you to do that?
Yeah, with COVID, it's been awful because the price of lumber has skyrocketed. But other than that, it's been very interesting seeing like the actual like physical product development side of a company. Because with media, like it's technically physical, but not really because it's on a computer. So you're producing like assets, like video and photo assets for companies. But with this, it's an actual like tangible product, and that you have to like design from start to finish. You have to design a graphic, like make a company logo, and then build a website, figure out shipping and logistics. Like it was a huge learning experience for me. And we've only done one drop so far. We have a second one coming up first week of July. And then, yeah, it's been a huge learning curve. Very cool experience all around though, just because I feel like I know a lot more about this side of things. Obviously still have a ton to learn, but I know a lot more than I did going into it. Yeah, it's been crazy. And then also had like a clothing line that was like a similar process, a little easier there because it's more kind of like streamlined and straightforward. But between those two things, it definitely was a huge learning curve.
Yeah. Did you have any mentors, or what was the learning process for you? Just trial and error?
Yeah, a lot of trial and error. I've had like people that I've been able to like reference for questions, but I haven't had like a set mentor.
Dang. Wow. Yeah. It's a big testament to your ability to grind, man. That's,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, not just grinding though, but like, that's just a big lesson as well as like, taking the roadblocks and going over the barriers and just.
There'll be a lot of them for sure. I'm exhibit A of that. It sucks, but you just got to grind through it.
Yeah. Seriously.
That's facts. Yeah, man. Like you just got to find your own way. Like you said, like you definitely were able to pioneer your way through the product development process to actually get a tangible product, right? Speaking of that product, right? So for the first drop, the Neuvision Skate Co V1, right? It's 35.5 inches long, ranging between 8.5 to 9.25 inches wide. It has a rocker concave with subtle micro drops, right? Made a 9-ply Canadian maple. And for our listeners and viewers who may not understand actually what all those terms and what those phrases mean, right? Could you possibly explain, right, for our listeners and viewers what it was like to source the materials and the design for your company's first longboard?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, all those kind of numbers he just threw out were all like the different dimensions you have to tweak and things to do when designing a board. So it's like this kind of intricate software, and there's just so much to do. I outsourced that. Like I worked with someone who was like an expert in that software and like designed it, but I wasn't the one tweaking the software just because I have no idea how to do it. And then in terms of like sourcing like the raw materials, that was all outsourced through like a skateboard manufacturer. And then so basically like I would take all these parts from these different things and then like bring them into one, like get the mold for like the board with all the concave and everything developed somewhere, have that sent to the skateboard manufacturer and have all the files that they need to cut out everything and put the logo on, sent here, like all this other stuff. But that part wasn't as bad as it sounds once you kind of like have the basic of what the board is going to be. But yeah, that was definitely an interesting experience as well, and one that was a huge learning experience because I had no idea how to do that.
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, that definitely sounds like it's a whole process. And so what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you had when going through this process?
I think the biggest challenge presented was just the whole situation with COVID and like having everything with production just being so slow and like pushed back. Like I think I was hoping to launch the company like 9 months before it actually launched, but everything was just pushed back. And then like once it gets to winter, it's not really as good to launch a company like that in the dead of winter. So I was kind of waiting till like mid to late spring to do it.
Got you. Yeah, man, that's fair. I mean, I feel like the roads aren't as friendly to longboarders in the wintertime. So yeah, that makes sense.
For sure.
And on the back end of that, right? Like, so what would you say were some of the most important, or I guess game-changing lessons that you learned about yourself, or maybe just about the whole process when going through and starting your own company?
Yeah, so learned a lot on the back end, just like I was saying, from everything from all the dirty work, making the website, designing the board, outsourcing material, working with the companies and having some hiccups there. But yeah, definitely learned just a lot about the entire process. I'm trying to think of like the way to articulate it. I learned certain things, or not learned, well, kind of learned, but like made mistakes that I will go into future relationships with companies and not make the same mistakes just because that lack of experience. Certain things like contracts, anything from like deposits, like if you're depositing a payment, like making sure everything's like all the boxes are checked before you proceed with the next thing. That was like a huge thing I learned in this process. And then, yeah, I'd say just those things kind of sum it up. Sorry, that wasn't like the best answer to that question, but that's kind of what I learned.
No, man, I mean, that's definitely pretty helpful to learn. I mean, I feel like just no matter what, right? I mean, there's always something to learn with anything, right? And hearing your own perspective about how you started the company and all the different problems that you face and how you navigate through those problems would be helpful for me, Dimitri, or anyone else who's listening and thinking about starting something. Because I mean, there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be challenges. It's just a matter of being able to really navigate your way through those challenges.
For sure.
Yeah, and so like what I'm curious about is how'd you keep yourself motivated? Like COVID's been pushing this for months and months on end. I feel like there's so many people, it's like their go-to excuse, like, oh, I was gonna do this, but COVID, and then it's like, okay, what have you done since? They're like, oh, well, COVID, So
yeah, COVID's the excuse for everything.
Yeah, how do you like not let that excuse define what you did and just actually follow through on your goals?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think part of it was like dropping out of school kind of gives you that extrinsic motivation to like, you gotta actually like pay rent and do other stuff. And then I really started reading a lot more last year, just listening to audiobooks whenever I go on like a run or in the car. And just a lot of things I learned in that just kind of like got me excited to continue to kind of like build my own personal brand, build businesses, continue to network and like just put myself out there in the business world while adventuring, just social media and everything. So just kind of stuff like that kept me motivated. And then the fact that a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do within like the US, obviously couldn't travel internationally, but a lot of with domestic stuff I could still kind of travel and do. So I wasn't too restricted there, but it definitely was different with COVID this year for sure.
Yeah, obviously the biggest change with COVID was like the supply chain process. But like, can you like tell us what is it like? Like, how do we get from design of a longboard to like the actual physical, tangible product?
Yeah, so the first process is just designing it on that software. I believe it's called Rhino. You kind of design everything from like everything on the board is like tweaked by you, and like from the curves on it, like the wheel wells, which is where like it gives the wheels extra clearance with the trucks from the board, and then everything. And then from there you kind of send that to a manufacturer. They give you basically a quote on like how much stuff is going to cost on like the startup end of it, and then once everything's established, the per unit cost. And some manufacturers will then kind of take the process there from you. You also have to like get artwork / graphic, whatever you're thinking. to them, and then they'll kind of take the process from start to finish. But I was involved a little more in that process, from outsourcing like the materials for the graphics, and then also just the type of wood it was made with. Like Canadian maple is kind of a standard in the longboard industry as far as wood goes. And then, once they're all kind of done, produced by the manufacturer, then the whole shipping thing's a whole other logistical nightmare. Like I said, it's just a learning experience.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, good stuff, good insight.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's definitely good insights, and it's interesting to hear about the entire process. I mean, I remember just from my own days of longboarding, right? Like the material used, right? I mean, it would differ, but like you said, right? Canadian maple was a pretty big staple. I mean, just almost every board that I would use would just be made of that, right? And like in terms of just like the actual design of the board itself, right? I mean, like just because well, I'm guessing that because you're a downhill skateboarder, right? That you kind of I guess you just gravitated towards designing your board for people who would also downhill skate.
Yeah, I was definitely, I made it kind of with the intention that people could comfortably go fast downhill on it, but also enjoy cruising it around a college campus. That's why the design's pretty simple. Kind of, you can do it, use it however you like. I've taken mine over 60 miles per hour and cruised to Target on it. So it's kind of just one of those things that I wanted one that was pretty versatile, just for like the market fit and the target audience I was trying to hit.
Sure, man, that's dope. And so what's it like going 60 miles per hour on a longboard? I mean, obviously, right, like just going that fast on a small board, right? I mean, that must be kind of pretty gnarly at times, right?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the road and how smooth it is, but it definitely can be a bit scary. Anything above 60 is where it stops getting fun, and it's like more just like you're trying to survive because it's a little freaky. But it's definitely, I don't know, it's so hard to describe the feeling of that, but it just puts you in that like flow state. Like you're so just like in the moment. And that's with like a lot of different activities that I do, like skydiving, very, very much in the flow state. And then just anything where you're like really pushing yourself, like big hikes or anything like that. You just kind of in that state of flow and just living completely in the present. That's like the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's funny. That kind of sounds like one of my really good friends. He's like crazy on motorcycles. And so like when he's going in between cars and traffic,
oh my God,
how do you stay? Because if it was me, I'm like, someone better not open their door, or, spit their gum out the window. Like any little thing could just turn it all into a nightmare. But he's like, no. He said exactly what he said. Like you're in a flow state. You're just like, so you don't even know where you are. You're just like going. You're not thinking about anything, but just like the adrenaline, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so where do you see Neuvision 5 years from now? Do you have any sort of long-term or mid-term goals for the company?
I have more longer-term goals with the clothing company because it's like a for charity thing, and that's what I really want to do. Like in the future, like more purposeful work. With the longboard company, I honestly don't even know. It's so hard to say at this point. So much has changed in the last 9 months that it's so hard for me to think what 5 years from now will be. But I could see it still being a thing. I could also see myself focusing on it less and focusing more on other bigger projects. So from that standpoint, it's hard for me to say. But the Neuvision clothing, I think, will be around just because I'm very passionate about that kind of the charity aspect of things.
And let's talk about the charity aspect. I mean, I'm like through the Neuvision clothing company, right? I mean, you announced actually that you're giving 100% of the profits to a charitable cause called Global H2O that will be providing clean water to communities all across Uganda, right? So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So just going into the entire process, I kind of decided I don't know, I remember where it was. And like, obviously religion's out of this, but there was some religious kind of motivation behind it. I just kind of like had this feeling that I just needed to do something like for charity and like this big passion project that could actually benefit the world and use the platforms that I've been blessed enough to build to do something bigger. And so I kind of knew going into it that I wanted to do, originally it's just the first drop that was going to be for charity. And then I had like a huge change of heart, and I'm like, how crazy would it be if the whole company was for charity? Like each drop was for a certain cause. And then just through like long story, but ended up landing on the whole idea of building a well and providing like one of the basic necessities, water, to an entire community. I have that whole story on the Neuvision Co website, but crazy thing, got connected with one of my friends who has an uncle that started a charity called Global H2O that literally does this exact thing. And it was just like this weird godsend moment where I was like, wow, that was just meant to work out. So then the goal was to just be able to fund one entire well with the first drop of Neuvision stuff. And it was pretty ambitious. Like a well costs, they're through that company specifically, it's like $8,500. So it was like a lot of work ahead. But ended up launching the company. Everything went well. We had some donations as well, which helped us get like right up at the goal, which I was really excited about. And then for the past little while, like it's been the whole well building process has been a little delayed with all of COVID stuff. Uganda just got put back on lockdown again, which is crazy, but they were just finishing it up and had already sent some pictures. So I was getting excited for it. We'll hopefully have more on that soon. But yeah, it was a crazy process. It's taken way longer than I thought, but also super exciting.
That's dope, man. Yeah, I mean that's great to hear that you're following your passions, right? I mean this is what this whole podcast is about, just following your passions and doing the things that bring you joy and also just bring you happiness, right? And so before we just wrap it up here, let's briefly touch on health and wellness, right? So obviously you travel the world, you find the dopest spots to bomb hills on your longboard going 60 plus miles per hour, right? And also you're running a growing company and also a pretty much a nonprofit, right? But how do you find balance in all of this, right? Like what types of habits or routines do you have personally that help you stay grounded?
Yeah, so I've started to really try to add some more structure to my life, because sometimes I'll just like feel like I get stuck on one thing all day, and then I feel like I don't do anything for the rest of the day, or like anything else the rest of the day. So I've started adding some structure, like my to-do list every day. I'll read it right now. Read 30 minutes, workout, 1 hour of community engagement, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, like replying to messages. I try to get 8 hours of sleep, and I try to do all this while limiting my screen time to 6 hours a day, and then 15 minutes of playing the guitar just to like kind of get creative. And then on top of that, there's just like other projects that I try to, like videos I edit or companies I'm like outreach. So it kind of sounds like a lot, but structuring it and like having a list where I can check a box every single day has definitely helped me as of the past like month or so. And so that definitely helps with balance. And then being able to take a break from certain things, because doing one thing every day, even if you're doing it for 30 minutes, can sometimes feel like super repetitive. So sometimes just switching it up and having a day where I skip that activity or I don't do something, then you come back more refreshed the next time.
Yeah, man, for sure.
And that's a big testament that you can do it all even with 8 hours of sleep.
Oh, I haven't checked the 8 hours of sleep box in the past little bit.
Darn, man. That's something I've
we're
always
at
been
7. 7's still good. Yeah, it's been 7.
Yeah, 7's fine.
We'll work with it for now.
That's good stuff. That's crazy. So yeah, just kind of before closing, something that we love to ask all our guests that come on the pod, just, it's kind of a hard question, at least one that's like might take some thought. Yeah, don't get too worried. But how do you personally define success?
So success is definitely a lot more in the happiness realm for me. It kind of involves happiness, experiences, relationships, friendships, like that. It's much more than just a number for me. And I've always been anti, like, I don't think money will make you happy. Obviously, money can give you cool experiences, and like experiences can make you happy, but at the same time, you can do a lot of different things in life for not as much as you think. And I think the whole kind of just concept of life that society pushes does not cater to happiness. So if that's your definition of success, then it's hard to be successful. But society just tries to sell you on the fact that a number is success. But success, I don't believe, can be defined as a number. So yeah, I guess that kind of just ties into like any advice I would give is just find something that makes you tick. Like find that thing that makes you happy and excited to get up and work towards. Even if you have to work a 9 to 5 while working 6 to 10 per, like, to try to like make your dream come true. But yeah, life's short. It can end at any point. You know, I could run to the grocery store and get in a car accident. You know, you never know when it's going to end. And it's just realizing that and realizing that it's such a beautiful thing. So just embrace the uncertainty of it and just go live life to the fullest. Do what makes you happy.
100%.
Yeah, man.
Definitely.
Sure. Yeah,
That's kind of my quick little spiel.
True. That's all fact. It's be conscious in what you do and how you spend your time, and always pay attention to the vision. And like you said, if you're doing the 9 to 5 or you have some sort of roadblocks in the way, just keep going. Take from Josh's example, and success will come. And the right success, not just society success. So
Exactly.
awesome, man. This has been great. So how can our listeners and viewers find you, your company, your social media presence? How can they find you?
Yeah, everything can be found just through my Instagram, Josh Neuman, Neuman. And then I have like a link in my bio that has different links to basically everything. So Instagram is probably like the best home base, and then you can go from there pretty easily.
Cool. And all right, well, so there you have it. Josh Neuman, adventure, filmmaker, extreme sports athlete, and entrepreneur. And I just want to thank you again for coming on the pod here today. It was definitely dope to, it was definitely dope to hear more about your experiences, and also just your passions for helping the community with your clothing company through Neuvision, and also your passion for longboarding and just interest in business through starting Neuvision Skate Co. And definitely got to keep us updated with all the updates for the company, and also drop 2 coming in July of 2021, obviously in the heart of the summer when longboarders are definitely going to be out, bro. So I mean,
for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely excited for all that, and just want to just remind everyone who hasn't done it yet for some reason, shape, or form, definitely got to subscribe to Let's Travel on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or just wherever you get your podcasts. Because if you don't, I mean, it's all right, but kind of corny, but it's all good. No hard feelings. But yeah, man, just want to thank you again for coming on the pod. It was definitely a dope conversation here today.
Definitely glad we worked it out. Thank you again for having me.